You want a full reference number?
All right, getting ready to do another one of those podcasts. Hello?
Hi, what are you talking about?
Podcast. We're going to do another podcast. That guy, Chris Barnes, wants to do another podcast.
Didn't he just do one like yesterday? It's like people haven't even heard it yet.
Yeah, well, he did, but I mean, he called me, he said he wants to do another podcast. I don't know. He's crazy. He's manic. He just talks and he thinks he's hilarious. And what the hell? It's a job. Just do your freaking job.
Hey, I hear that,
What do you hear, old man?
I hear that Chris Barnes wants to do another podcast.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Are you on? Are you in? Are you? Who the hell are you?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, well, if you're not working on the podcast, you need to leave.
Podcast?
Yeah, the podcast. Chris Barnes wants to do another podcast. Because he did one last night, and it's kind of screwed up because he did it, and it went on for like 2 hours. And most podcasts don't go on for like 2 freaking hours. But he was like, never missed a beat. He was just talking for like 2 hours. I told you he's like manic or he's on, amphetamines or something. I don't know. I don't know. At minimum, it's too much coffee. But anyway, and rumor has it, actually, he drinks a lot. So I don't know how he could have had so much energy to do a 2-hour podcast. But then he posts it, and when it shows up on YouTube, it actually says that it runs for 6 hours. It's people who know him already were scared shitless. They were like, "Whoa, I don't need 6 hours of this guy."
I heard with podcasts, you can just sort of like turn them off if you don't want to listen to the whole thing.
I realize that. It's just, anyway, just get out of here. Didn't we establish that you have nothing to do here with this whole production? So get out.
Okay, I'll see you. So I hear we're doing the podcast thing again.
Podcast coming up. Everybody, you guys need to stop talking. The podcast is about to start. All right, well, last time we had like this guy that he was apparently hired to like read the big opening and everything. Oh, hey, it's the Chris Barnes podcast.
Yes, hi, I'm here. I'm here to read about the podcast.
Right, okay. So listen, what do you got? Listen, last time you like lost the scrap of paper you had written it on. Do you know what you're supposed to say this time?
Something about this is the Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh shit! No, the Joe Rogan podcast is down the hall. Get out of here.
Oh no! Okay, no, I signed on to the Chris Barnes podcast too. I'm doing it pro bono because he's got no money.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, he's got no money. He's got nothing.
Hey, you be careful how you talk about Chris Barnes.
I thought I told you to get the hell out of here, old guy. I don't know. I have no idea who you are. Get the hell out of here now. Did he leave?
I think he left this time.
No, I didn't.
Well, get out. Anyway, so we're going to do this podcast thing, I understand, for Joe Barnes. I mean, Chris Rogan. Or who is it again?
Chris Barnes. It's the guy that did the... He convinced us he was had some sort of freaking radio experience. So then we all felt like, oh, this is going to be a good gig. And then we found out he's just a freaking asshole. Just a freaking weirdo. But, anybody can do a podcast these days. Hey, I can do a freaking podcast. Maybe we'll just do a podcast. It'll be my podcast.
What would you call it?
I don't know. I'm just a voice. I'm just a voice on Chris Barnes' podcast opening, so I'm not actually a living, breathing human being, but I guess I don't know, we'd call it something.
I hear Chris Barnes hasn't even figured out what the hell to call his own podcast.
I think he calls it It's My Podcast. You know, like he thinks that's funny. Oh yeah, hilarious. Oh hey, it's my podcast. Anyway, let's just get the shit together because he's gonna eat. It's a job, for God's sakes. If we're supposed to be doing the opening to another one of his podcasts, just freaking do it. I can't believe that every time he goes to do a podcast and we all get together, we can't freaking get it right.
Hello, I have a little scrap of paper. I have a little scrap of paper here. I think this is the intro that he wanted.
Well, it's about time. Why don't you just read it? Where's the guy that's supposed to play the music? I think I'm the guy.
I think I'm the guy that's supposed to play the music, and you threw me out.
No, it was a different guy last time.
Well, a different guy didn't show up. So I'm the guy that's supposed to play the music.
Well, then friggin' do your friggin' job, okay? Let's get the music going and let's get this guy. Hey, music guy, start playing the music. Mr. Voice guy, start doing the. Oh, excuse me. Oh, man, I had Mexican at lunch. It's terrible. I'm so sorry, everybody. Well, let's get this thing started, for God's sakes.
You know, I had some people say that they heard Chris Barnes' first podcast and kind of thought that this kind of opening, rambling, stupid intro is the funniest part of it.
Yeah, I heard that too. I was actually quite enthused at the prospect that we could just have a podcast, or maybe we just do this. But you know, this can only go on for so long. Ultimately, Chris Barnes is going to show up and want to do his podcast. So,
hi. So you want me to do the intro?
Yeah, I think that's what we've established. Why don't you just do the freaking intro and we'll get on with things and then whatever.
Okay. Music guy, are you ready? Music guy? Oh, that's right. Okay. Music. Was it supposed to be this?
No, that's not his music. Remember when you Come on, get the right music.
Oh, okay, hang on. Was it supposed to be this?
No.
You know, I do like that better than the stuff he used the first time.
Well, we can't do. It's not his music. So find the right music, man. Come on. I want to get this freaking thing started. I am so freaking sick and tired of this old crap.
Okay. Come on, old man. Find the music. I think it was this. Okay,
well, let's just have a little pause, okay, so that we can start the show. And can we have the background noise, please? Everybody be quiet. Podcast coming up, okay? Quiet on the set, so to speak.
You need to stop farting then.
Shut up. Okay. Shh. 3, 2, 1. Where's the music?
I don't know. What was that thing with the numbers?
That's what you do in the business when you're... It was a countdown. Just play the freaking music. And now read the freaking thing.
Okay. It's the Chris Barnes podcast.
Not you, the voice guy. Can everybody please remember what their job is?
Hi, and welcome to episode 2 of Chris Barnes and It's My Podcast.
It's not your podcast, it's his podcast.
It says here, Chris Barnes, It's My Podcast. What am I supposed to freaking say?
Oh yeah, that is kind of a problem. I don't know. He should have rethought what he calls it, you know? But anyway, I think our part is done. I think if we all just shut up and let the music play, he'll eventually, chime in and start talking. Because that's what he does. It's what he does. and then he doesn't stop for like hours. So let's just get the hell out of here. As a matter of fact, music guy, just let the music play. It'll eventually run out.
Music guy's falling asleep again.
Yeah, I figured as much. Anyway, just leave him there. Come on, let's get out of here. I'll buy you a drink.
You had me at buy.
Yeah, I figured so.
But drink was good too. You had me at drink, actually. But you said buy first, so I was like...
Yeah, whatever. Don't, just, come on. We got a podcast happening here. We got to get out of the way. I'm telling you, you don't want to piss Chris Barnes off. He'll freaking kill you. He's a freaking asshole. Okay.
Message received. Well, hi everybody, and welcome to my welcome to my podcast. Yes, hi, I'm Chris Barnes. I have a podcast. Yes, I do. This is my podcast, episode 2. The problem is that I think everybody got it wrong. I wasn't scheduled to be like doing another episode of my podcast today. I mean, for God's sakes, this is not done in like real time. For goodness sake. I mean, I just did like a 2-hour podcast like last night, and I'm tired, and I have a job. Actually, I juggle 4 jobs. I juggle 4 jobs in radio, like legitimate jobs, most of which I'm about to lose. Once my supervisors hear this kind of stuff, and it's not like it's not out there. I mean, like, it's so weird. I'm smart enough to know how to upload something to YouTube, but I don't know how to get rid of something from YouTube. So it's kind of like I'm drunk YouTubing. It was kind of like, did you mean to upload that? Did you mean to upload that to YouTube? Because that was a huge embarrassment, pal. And I'm like, well, no, I kind of did it when I was loaded, but I don't know how to delete it now. So I guess it's just out there until Jesus comes someday. Anyway, I'm not supposed to be doing a podcast right now. And you probably figured out that opening going as long as it did was sort of the joke. And it was the joke. That was the joke. So there's no actual podcast happening. Well, I mean, I guess it's still kind of a podcast. And frankly, from what I understand, from the kids who dig the podcasts these days, these days, I mean, it's not like they've been around for that long. But anyway, no, from what I understand, some people do them in a more digestible form than my 2-hour podcast. By the way, that was not a joke during the opening. If you've actually been listening, seamlessly since that absurd stuff there in the opening began, there was a reference to the fact that I did my first podcast. By the way, this is my podcast. Hello. Hi, I'm Chris Barnes. Welcome to my podcast. Hi. In case you were just joining us, this is my podcast. So I was just telling the folks, I was telling everybody there at home that I did a podcast. I did my first podcast in terms of the actual, reality. Because, I mean, I could do a podcast for 6 hours and then just stop it and then go, bam, I'm going to do another one right now. And I'll say I did it 2 days later. You'd never know. You would never freaking know. It's about when I post it. But you'll find that these have been, well, I don't know. I mean, if you were among my Facebook friends, you'll find out that they were pretty close together. So it doesn't sound like I'm lying about having done like this lengthy podcast and then starting to do another one right away, like almost immediately. Not immediately. I've actually slept a little bit. I did a work shift and found time to and found a lot of time to keep listening to my first podcast because I think we've clearly established I'm my own biggest fan. I love I did a podcast. By the way, did you hear? Yes, I have a podcast. I'm not just some guy on the street. I have a podcast. As if anybody, I mean, there's 4-year-olds that have podcasts. They can turn on the computer and hit a record button and just kind of go, and they've got a freaking podcast, ladies and gentlemen. You have to check some of those kids out. Their material is certainly better than mine. Oh, anyway. Okay. Hey, if you heard my first podcast, you know that I made reference to the fact that I have a cat, not through my own choice. It's my mom's cat, but mom's in a home now, so I have to take care of the cat. Frankly, this cat needs to be in a home. She just sneezed next to me. You wouldn't have heard that. I should have just not even mentioned it, It's not like it matters, I mean, when the cat sneezes and she's 5 feet from the microphone, you don't hear it. But I felt the need to tell you that my cat just sneezed. By the way, when people say, hey, what podcast do you listen to? Well, I listen to this one and that one. I heard this guy who works for the United Nations, and he was discussing the problems in South Africa lately. And then I was listening to one about the continued tensions in the Middle East. And there's one I listen to that's economic in background. It's all about there's a coming recession that people are arguing about, but, a lot of the experts say it's actually going to happen. What do you listen to? I listen to this guy. Well, I'll just give you the link. See what you think of it. You might want to call the authorities. Or mental health professionals, I'm not sure which. But now, the joke of this was, I just did that big rambling open, and my original plan was that the joke was going to be, I was just going to pop up and I was just going to pop up and go, hey, everybody. No, anyway, I was just going to pop up and go, I did it again. I'm slurring my words. And I actually haven't been drinking. Maybe I am coming down with a mental illness. I'm not sure. Maybe I need to stop this and just call a doctor. Somebody please call a doctor. I'm listening to this podcast. And this guy clearly needs a doctor. And he doesn't seem to realize it. Call, please. No, but this is not a live show. It's a podcast. Hi, I'm Chris Barnes. This is my podcast. I may have passed away in the interim since I did this and you're listening to it. Or I may have, tumbled into such a deep form of dementia that I'm just, don't worry about me. I'm sure Medicaid is, I'm sure Medicaid is taking care of me by now. The worst possible circumstance, I'm sure I'm being taken care of. I'm sure I'm soiled and in horrific conditions, but I mean, don't worry about me. I don't know the difference, Thank goodness he didn't actually realize how sad his life was. Now, anyway, do I sound like I think my life is sad? I mean, at this moment, at least. But again, as I say, who knows what's happened in the hours or minutes, for that matter, because I'm planning to post this quickly. No, but my original joke was going to be I did the big rambling intro to my second episode. And unlike my first episode, which was, it did go 2 hours. I mean, well, counting the same stupid kind of an opening and a similar type of a closing, with the interim, I keep using that word, interim, with the body of the product. Now I'm really sounding like I think I know what I'm talking about. Well, the body of the product was the situational problem with the body of the product was that he was not constitutionally allowed to have. Anyway. I do this for my own entertainment, ladies and gentlemen, and if you happen to want to sign on, I'm all for it. And as of now, I'm still trying to monetize it. I'm like the equivalent of the guy that's like flipping a quarter, leaning on a telephone pole down at the end of some city street, looking to scam somebody. And in the meantime, I'm kind of like flipping a quarter, waiting for somebody to come by that I can go, hey, Pally, come over here. Hey, you want to hear a podcast? I got a podcast. It's really good, but you're going to have to kick in some money. Anyway, my plan was I was going to pop on and do this little thing where I was like, after like 10 minutes of an opening thing, I was going to go, well, hi, everybody. I somehow got mistakenly scheduled for a recording appointment here, and people thought I was going to do a podcast today, but I don't have time. So thank you very much. I'll see you. And then it was going to be a long rambling, which there still will probably be. a big closing, too, with all those guys. God love them. Aren't they funny? They all remind me of me. I don't get it. They all remind me of me. It's just amazing. So anyway, but then, once you engage me, and you didn't, nobody engaged me. I'm sitting here all by myself. I shouldn't say that. I'm sitting here with the cat. I'm watching I'm not watching them, actually. I'm just enjoying the sound of my own voice. But to put this in perspective, yeah, I'm watching the November 19th edition of the Trump impeachment inquiry public hearings. And that's purely because I do news in my initial job. Here, that's in the background. Hang on, listen.
Father never gave up working hard to build his very own American dream, did he? He did not. Well, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, your father achieved the American dream, and so did you and your family.
Obviously, that is a Democrat talking to the witness. Okay. I think that was pretty clear. Like in about a minute, I should turn it on again, and it'll be a Republican going, "You're a freaking asshole! Get the fuck out of here!" So anyway, as I say, this was not supposed to be a thing. This was supposed to be like an addition. The joke was it's going to be like a 10-minute intro, and then it was going to be me going, "Hi everybody, don't have time to do a podcast right now. See ya." But, of course, just like when I sit next to people at the bar or anywhere, or the bus, or anywhere, like I think anywhere is a better term to use. I cannot stop talking to people. I need to be stopped. It's terrible. Anyway, unless you like it, and if that's okay with you, could you send me some money? Actually, I essentially did that, and it's all above board. I've mismanaged a schedule on taking care of my mother's affairs, so I had to do a Facebook fundraiser, and I feel filthy, and yet I have so many good friends that have kicked in and some of them have kicked in as in they just came and kicked me, but a lot of them have actually donated money to it. And it's wonderful. And it's all going, that's just it. I kind of screwed up. I needed to sell the condo here that she owns. And I've been like the freeloader that's been living here for years. And then, of course, it's always a matter of time. And we're coming close to that Medicaid thing with her. And that wasn't supposed to happen. But anyway, so long story short, whatever. Anyway, so I'm just looking at the time here. I'm actually still on the clock with my actual jobs, which I think I mentioned I'm juggling 3, 4. Well, I don't know now. Actually, I could have lost one of them at least by now because of my irresponsible ways of the past 20 minutes. But anyway, so we'll see. I mean, when you're covering breaking news, when I'm supposed to be like watching this hearing,
Praying their responsibility to the nation, Ambassador Taylor responded, "Yes, sir." Colonel Vindman, do you agree with Ambassador Taylor? I do. I then asked,
he does. And he looked serious about it, too. Wow. I got to figure out what's going on here. I'm supposed to be doing the news in a couple of minutes. Anyway, so thank you very much for listening to episode 2 of my podcast. I want to apologize, seeing as episode 1 went for 2 hours, and this is only going for what is it, an hour? Well, it will be after I put the little. Hang on. Essentially, it'll be an hour after I add the stupid stuff at the end, which I'm willing to do. Okay? I'll get right on it. Because screw the news. Anyway, thank you for listening to my podcast. By the way, if you're just in the unusual event, you're just like skipping around and you just landed here at this particular portion of my podcast. I just wanted to tell you I have a podcast. Yes, this is it. This is my actual podcast. And now, if you weren't expecting you'd find it entertaining in any way, you're probably absolutely correct. You have intuition. It's amazing how brilliant you must be. But in case you have some odd tastes, I encourage you to go back and listen to this from the beginning. And, of course, if you've already heard it, none of you will. And there will be no word of mouth. Well, I'll get word of mouth. I'll get word of mouth. There'll be word of mouth about this product. But it's going to be, oh, man, if you ever come across that guy, Chris Barnes, do you listen to podcasts? Yeah, who do you listen to? I listen to Michael Mara. I listen to Will Ferrell. I listen to Joe Rogan. I listen to that one called I Love My Guns. Oh, yeah, everybody listens to that one. You ever come across one called something about Chris Barnes? It's my podcast. Yeah, I've seen that. I was thinking of checking it out. Don't bother. Take it from me. Do not check it out. It's a big freaking waste of time. You want to throw a bunch of time away? Do you want to spend a bunch of time where there's absolutely no basic value to it whatsoever? No, I would never want to do that. Oh, well then fine. Then do not check out Chris. Do not waste your time. Chris Barnes' podcast is a piece of shit. Talk about a piece of shit. They shouldn't even call it a podcast. They ought to call it a POD? No, POS. Yeah, piece of shit. It's a piece of shit cast. That's what it is. Anyway, so again, I've done a second episode of my podcast. Again, hello, this is my podcast. See, I can suddenly come back into my normal being. I'm not completely out of my mind. Instead of doing another one of those things where I do all the voices, I think I'm going to close the podcast out with that song that started to come in, that if you've never heard it, now my peers will have heard it, but as I mentioned numerous times in my first episode, I know that the consumers of podcasts are usually younger folks than myself. I'm 60. By the way, if you just all of a sudden a bunch of people went, wow, he's freaking 60? I thought he was some freaking asshole college sophomore. who was on meth and decided he was going to do a podcast. No, I'm 60. Yeah, I know. Just roll your eyes. Please do. That's what my son does. I have a 21-year-old son. He just rolls his eyes. Everybody rolls their eyes about me. But so what was I going to say? I was going to say something, and this happens. What was it? What was it? I want to find it. Oh, that's right. The song, the thing, the end of the show. Yes, I realize that a lot of you will not know this song, but it came out in like 1960, whatever, and it's a guy named Napoleon, and it kind of is rather appropriate for my podcast. By the way, I am doing a podcast, and I know it's scary, but you're actually listening to it now. Or you may be listening to it now. Possibly you tuned out a long time ago. You took the advice. Oh, yeah, don't listen to Chris Barnes' podcast. Anyway, so rather than do another big crazy thing, I'm going to play this, and I don't have the rights to it. So ultimately, this episode will probably be yanked off the internet. Or if it isn't, they're going to do a little thing where you just hear a bleep noise. But I'm hoping that doesn't happen, because this is a great old tune that I think fits. And I think you'll agree with me when you hear it. But anyway, this is the enemy talking in my podcast, or this episode of it. Make no mistake, I will talk again. I shall talk again. What great general said that? I shall talk again. No, I'll be back talking. No, that's Schwarzenegger. Anyway, so here's the music, and thanks for listening. And I'll tell all those other guys that we're going to do that I was going to use for the ending. They'll live. They'll go to the after party and have a good time. So anyway, thank you for listening. Tell your friends about my podcast. Whichever way you want to spin it. I suspect you will make sure that it does not get discovered. But in the event that you want to just for laughs and giggles recommend it to somebody. That's another thing you could do. You could recommend it to somebody, and then they'll come back and go, dude, you told me to listen to that podcast. Boy, that was so fucked up. What, do you actually listen to that guy's podcast? And he can say, no, it was a prank. It was just a prank. That was the whole joke. Don't you get it? The whole idea was I didn't think you'd want to hear that guy ramble with his mania and his psychoses for hours. Anyway, so so anybody you don't like, recommend my podcast. Who knows? By the way, this is my podcast. Just so we know. Just so we're clear, I'm Chris Barnes, and this is my podcast. And this edition is over. Thank God. But here's that song that like I said, this song is appropriate. And I'm just going to kind of let it play for a while, and then at some point I'll fade it out. From what I remember, it's only like a 2-minute song, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, thank you again for listening to my podcast. Anyway, bye-bye.
Remember when you ran away and I got on my knees and begged you not to leave because I go berserk? Well, you left me anyhow, and then the days got worse and worse, and now you see I've gone completely out of my mind. And they're coming to take me away, ha-ha, they're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny farm where life is beautiful all the time, and I'll be happy to see those nice young men in their clean white coats, and they're coming to take me away, ha-ha! You thought it was a joke, and so you laughed. You laughed when I had said that losing you would make me flip my lid. Right? You know you laughed. I heard you laugh. You laughed, and then you left. But now you know I'm utterly mad. And they're coming to take me away, ha-ha. They're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha. To the happy home with trees and flowers and chirping birds and basket weavers who sit and smile and twiddle their thumbs and toes, and they're coming to take me away, ha-ha. I cut cooked your food, I cleaned your house, and this is how you pay me back for all my kind, unselfish, loving deeds. Ha! Well, you just wait, they'll find you yet, and when they do, they'll put you in the ASPCA, you mangy mutt. And they're coming to take me away, ha-ha, they're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny farm, where life is beautiful all the time, and I'll be happy to see those nice young men in their clean white coats, and they're coming to take me away, ha-ha, to the happy home with trees and flowers and chirping birds and basket weavers who sit and smile and twiddle their thumbs and toes, and they're coming to take me away, ha-ha, to the funny farm, where life is beautiful all the time, and I'll be happy to see those...
All right, we're clear. Podcast is over. Thank goodness.
You want a full reference, huh?
Yeah, he said he was just going to play the music and then it was going to be over. He said something about, I'm not going to have all those guys with the voices that are all me, and I'm just not going to.
Yeah, I know, but whatever. You know, he doesn't really know how to do a podcast. You know, I mean, he's never. You know, we're the ones that know how to do the podcast. You know, I mean, he'd be friggin' sunk if it was just him.
No, I think you can do a podcast with your. Frankly, I don't think you need anybody.
Ah, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. So anyway, all right, we're all clear. Everything's clear. Podcast is over. Thanks, everybody, for pulling together. We got another podcast done for that asshole.
Hey, you want any more music or anything? Because I'm still, you know.
No, man, we're done. Thanks very much. By the way, I don't want you here again. You fucking suck. I don't think you're cut out for this business.
I don't appreciate that.
Yeah, I tell you what, you just go find something to do. Yeah, why don't you become a podcast consumer? How about you go out and just listen to podcasts, and every once in a while just write me a little note and say, hey, I heard of a podcast you might want to hear, and I'll be like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know anything about podcasts.
Well, that's obvious, you know, but then again, Chris Barnes doesn't seem to know anything about podcasts either. So, you know, I guess we're all in the same boat when it comes down to everything. Anyway, we're done. Podcast over, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for another good podcast. Well, you know, good, like, relatively good.
How do you mean that? Relatively good. As relative to what? Relative to something of actual quality?
No, God, absolutely not. No, I'm not comparing it to anything of quality. I'm just saying we survived.
Yeah, nobody died. That's that we know of.
I know he was talking about dying at the end, but you know, we should all be so lucky that he just finally expired. Anyway, listen, and hopefully he's not going to do another episode because
I just saw. I got an email here on my device. Apparently, he's planning on doing another episode.
oh frick. All right, well, whatever. You know, maybe he'll. I don't know. I don't want to think about it right now. I just want to go have a drink. Who's coming with me?
Everybody's coming with you. You said you were buying.
I don't recall that, but yeah, frankly, I gotta be home. I don't remember. I don't know what I was thinking. We're not going out for a drink. See you guys.
I go out for a drink. Would you buy? I'd buy. I think so. I mean, I'm not bi, but, you know, I've been with a man before. No, I didn't. That's not what I was asking. Anyway, this just got awkward. I think we should just turn off all the recording devices. Oh, man, you know. Were we recording anything? What the hell was going on here? It was a podcast. What's a podcast? All right, I'll see you.